So welcome along to Film Talk, and I'm delighted we're joined again by the wonderful Morris Bright MBE, film historian and author. A few of Morris's books behind me here on the bookshelves. And Morris, welcome to Film Talk, and we're talking today an absolute classic from probably one of the 20th century's greatest, if not the greatest, film director. What's our subject for today?
Well, thank you very much, Richard. Thank you for the introduction, and I'm glad to see that my books are no longer holding up your table. And you obviously have got a new one. As you know from previous discussions, we've had two of my favourite directors, Billy Wilder and Alfred Hitchcock. And I just thought it was time to have a look at another Hitchcock film. And one that I've grown to love even more over many years. It's Rear Window. And the reason why I said I've grown to love it more is because when I first started seeing it, so what would it be, 30 years ago or so, you'd have in those days your 22-inch square box television, that you used to rent or buy if you could afford one. And then slowly but surely, you ended up going to widescreen televisions. And then you started going to widescreen HD televisions. And now you've got big widescreen TVs and Blu-ray. And I recently bought a restored edition of Rear Window. And historically, when you might have been able to see some of the action of what was going on in some of the flats opposite the James Stewart character's home, and we'll talk about that in a moment, you can in the HD and with the Blu-ray now really see them in great detail. So you've got the woman doing the Keep Fit and the lonely hearts woman that's hoping to find love, and the aspiring musician and the couple that are arguing and so on. And you can actually see them, and you can suddenly, for the first time, really get what it was like for the character who's a wheelchair-bound photographer. So basically, James Stewart is a wheelchair-bound photographer. He likes going out on big action shoots, traveling all over the world, being independent, not wanting to have a woman in tow. He just wants to go and do his stuff. Suddenly finds himself with a broken leg after he's been taking shots in an auto race somewhere. And he's in this flat, and it's very hot. It's American. It's the middle of the summer. Slightly dodgy air conditioning. It's very humid, and his legs all bound up, and he can't move. In fact, he can't even get into bed really, and he has to be in this thing for about 6 weeks. And so he is trapped. Effectively, he's a prisoner because he likes to be out. And you see the whole of the film unfold in what is effectively through his window. So that's the frame for the shot, and sometimes through the lens, because occasionally he's zooming in to see a bit closer what's going on, when he gets the idea that one of the people opposite may have bumped off his wife. No, bumped off the guy's wife, not obviously his wife, because he's not one. And he's worried that this guy opposite has actually murdered his own wife and is trying to dispose of it. So he's got various people that come in and out to visit. He's got his high society fashion consultant girlfriend, played by Grace Kelly, who suddenly loves this opportunity of coming to visit. She looks absolutely stunning, and she just dresses up in these beautiful outfits because he's effectively trapped, and she loves him and kind of wants him, and is hoping that while he's there, she can be kind and loving, and he might warm a bit more to the thoughts of something a bit more permanent. So she's there. He also has his physio that comes in, his nurse, his physio that comes in, no nonsense there. And he's got a friend as well, who I think it works in the police force or something. And slowly but surely, and people who've been in lockdown for as many months as we have will begin to understand, they think he's going a bit bonkers, because he's convinced he's seen someone preparing to kill someone that kills someone. And they all just think, look, it's very hot, you're very tired, you've not been, you've not been out much, and you're on medication, and you're beginning to imagine it. And of course, he knows he's not imagining it. And of course, we now know he's not imagining it. And then it becomes a danger later on when the person who has committed the murder, right, realizes that James Stewart has cottoned on, and he then decides he's got to come for this guy who can't escape because he's a prisoner with his leg in a cast. And then they've got to start believing him. And at the last minute, we won't get into the details for those who haven't seen it, but it's absolutely a brilliant film. So it's not just a murder mystery. It's about relationships, it's drama, and it's really, it's what he does best. What Hitchcock, it's a thriller, right? And it's just, it raises the levels the whole time of anxiety, both from his character and as the viewer. Great film.
I mean, the suspense is incredible, because and the parallel with lockdown, as you pointed out, I hadn't thought of that until you just mentioned that, is absolutely right, because we're all kind of stuck in our houses, kind of looking out of the window at life that may or may not be happening just outside and kind of watching what's going on there. So there's an element of voyeurism in all of this, and you can see all the little behaviours and the dancer and the piano player in all the
it's complete
flats.
it's complete voyeurism, and at times he feels a bit guilty, particularly when his girlfriend points out to him that his behaviour is not really appropriate, zooming in on a lens on neighbours. You've got a young marrieds have just gone in to stay in the local hotel which is next door, and the curtains are closed, and he even on occasions himself bulks back because he thinks he's becoming a bit intrusive. Yes, that's exactly what it is, and maybe that's why we feel a bit uncomfortable as well, because we're seeing the pretty young lady doing her exercises outside, not knowing, in her room, not knowing that anyone's watching her, etc. And so there is voyeurism in there. There is suspense in there as well. It's a great old murder mystery, as in how the hell is it going to happen? How's the guy going to get rid of the body? Mm-hmm. And what you see is the whole time is only that set or the room that he's in. So there's no cutaway shots elsewhere. There's no cutaway shots to a high street. It's all filmed. And actually, it's all filmed on stage. It was actually stage 18, I think, at Paramount, a big stage. It was all filmed on stage. And I think you know this as well, that in order to give Hitchcock the perspective to be able to build effectively what was a set of flats, they had to dig down into what was a water tank so he could have that height to make it look realistic. And he could build these rooms in that people could actually be in. That's not artificial. That's not done by special effects. They really are in there. So you're only ever seeing that view of the back of the flats, side of the hotel, and the room. You're not seeing anything else. That's all it is the whole time as the suspense builds up.
And it's one set, fantastically lit and constructed. The whole of that production design and getting it all together was just astonishing. And it's just what you expect from Hitchcock. And I think, what did it win? Or was nominated for Oscars?
No, it was nominated for 4 Oscars, including Best Director and Screenplay, but also Cinematography. And that's really, really great. You think of how many films nowadays could you say get nominated for an Oscar for cinematography that have only been filmed inside a studio? It's very, very rare. But that goes to show how the Academy understood exactly what he'd managed to pull off and achieve by building the set that he did. And it's actually quite extraordinary. It actually was also up for the BAFTA for Best Film. I mean, again, it wasn't done for any other BAFTA, but just for Best Film. It just the people couldn't believe what they were seeing. It wasn't made for a huge amount of money. It was made for around $1 million. And I won't do the mathematics of $1 million then or $1 million now, but it made at the box office around the world $33 million. So say to yourself, what film nowadays can make a multiple of 30, 33, 35 times its original cost? And there's very few that can do that. And they are the big blockbuster spectaculars, right, with lots of special effects and everything. This was a film on a stage, and it was just wonderful. And as I've said, I think that in these day and ages, in lockdown, it particularly has become one to revisit. I'm funny like that. Depending on the weather, so if we get very hot, muggy nights in this country, which we do get sometimes in July and August, and I don't have air conditioning, I tend to watch films. Do you know I watch films later? No, I do.
Man in your position.
I can't afford doing these things all the time. I've got a hand fan. That's about it. All I like to do is watch old films late at night if I can't sleep. So I tend to watch films like Key Largo or Rear Window because it's almost like an extra dimension. You're like 3D, with it's like 4D. You feel the heat, you feel the oppression of what they're feeling, and it just brings a little bit more atmosphere to understand what the characters are going through. And of course, James Stewart in this particular film, just wonderful. Grace Kelly, never more beautiful. And a great actress as well. And of course, when she left to marry Prince Rainier, it was a huge loss to Hitchcock. He would hope to continue using her in films over the years. But as I've said, it's one of those great films. It stands the test of time because it's so beautifully made. And I would recommend anyone who hasn't seen it to get a Blu-ray copy of it and see it on a big screen and with the lights down, because effectively most of the time when he's watching out the window, his lights are down because he doesn't want to be seen by the others watching them. So do it with the lights down, feel that you're in that position. And if you have seen it before, revisit it, because it's a film that actually gets better. You enjoy more, not enjoy less.
Final question, I guess, then. Would you say that this is Hitchcock at his best? It's certainly from the absolute finest period of his life when it comes to filmmaking, though, isn't it? It's got to be one of the best Hitchcock movies of all time.
Yeah, it is. And it's Hitchcock going back to his roots, right? You know, in the days even before, in silent films, and again, it was all done in studios, so it was all done close-ups, and it was all done with people's view, seeing people's faces and everything, because the old picture speaks 1,000 words. He knew what he was doing. It was the work of a very assured director, and I would say it was those few years when he was making films like that, and in 57 he was making North by Northwest. Those few years between like 54 and 60, just before he hit Psycho, which I love, by the way, but it's a completely different type of film. And he really knew exactly what he was in command. He knew exactly what he needed to do, and while he was bringing in the money, the studios would allow him to just go out there and play, which is effectively what he was doing. And it is a wonderful film. But as I've said, it's one that sticks out for me primarily because it doesn't go anywhere, and I'm outside. And I normally like not to be too claustrophobic in a film, but this one, it's well worth it. And as I've said, every minute of it is not a wasted minute in that whole film. Well worth watching. Lovely film, love it.
Maurice, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do tell us what you think, leave some comments down below, and if you enjoyed the video, please do consider subscribing to our channel, and don't forget to hit that little bell icon so you can get a notification every time we release a new video. Thanks for watching, see you next time.